Hi everyone, I'm Sri Ranjani from India, and I'll be talking about observing bats in cities. And I've been doing that since I was a teenager. I was very fascinated and curious about bats. I didn't have an external funding, I didn't have grants, and I didn't have equipment, but I did a small research project which was on the flying foxes. And when we generally talk about cities, we look at buildings, and this is the outskirts of my city. So it's not completely off and away from wildlife. It's pretty much green in the outskirts. These were the two main places where I did my study. The one on the left is a public park cum zoo campus, and it's named after a freedom fighter. And the right one is in Central Prison. So growing up in high school, I spent most of my weekends in these two campuses, cramming my neck, looking up for hours and counting about 3,500 plus more flying foxes. And the rest of the time, I drove around talking to people, asking them for more, if they knew about other roosts, if they knew about other caves, and documenting that and counting roosts in places in and around the city. These are some of the bats I had photographed from the two sites I used to visit often. And I did try to take my friends with me a couple of times to show them bats, mostly also because they never wake up in the morning, so I couldn't take them birding. And a pro tip, whenever there is a pizza party planned, do not try to sneak in a bat walk at that time, because sometimes pizzas get delivered way before than you thought they would. And your friends are not really the nicest people on earth. Sometimes I did have company of friends who did want to go around counting bats with me, and they clicked really amazing pictures like these. So after we are done with the count for the day, we just lie down, look up, and see what's happening. So what I mainly did was seeing how many bats were there and what they ate. And one way of calculating bats is there are different counts, which I'll give you a link to, where there's this project called Tarot Count, and they tell you what these different methods are in case someone's interested. But for the others who are just here, not for the technical bit, when I say I looked at what they ate, I mainly meant I collected their poop weekends after weekends and sifted through their poop to see what seeds were there. This is just some chart that I made. Some of the information that I gather during these projects are not necessarily based on the counts I get. It's mostly the stories people tell you around. And one such thing was, a lot of people often told me that the sandal and coffee bushes and trees that were seen in and around certain areas were apparently defecated seeds from bat poop, and it over the years became a sandal tree or a coffee bush. There's no way I could make sure that this was the case. These were just things I heard. This was me spending one of such weekends spreading out plastic sheets under bat roosts, collecting bat poop and sifting through them. This teaches you a lot of patience and the way to breathe when you're around bat poop and baby diapers. That is, do not breathe through your nose. These were some of the seeds that I saw, that I found when I was sifting through bat poop. And this is the project that I was talking about, where one can go through their website, see if it's basically a project that keeps count on the flying foxes in and around places. So one can go count flying foxes based on the three different methods they've suggested and contribute to data. It doesn't necessarily have to be a weekly platform. And this is what I stumbled upon and started my first bat project as a high schooler. Apart from sifting through poop and counting bats, this was one of the bat pups that I had rescued from one of the roosts. It, I named him Shadow, and he was lying on his mother's dead carcass. I'm assuming there was some sort of an infection, and the carcass got buried away before people tried to figure out what it was. And there weren't a lot of competent people in my city to find out what the disease was, or if it was something that would spread through the population or not. It took a week or so for this pup to become active again, and I woke up twice or three times every night trying to check if this one was hungry, not hungry, going to school with it, hiding it away, and figuring out what was happening. But unfortunately, it didn't survive. There was some sort of an infection that the pup had also uh, contracted. I did know how to handle bats back then, so it wasn't that I was handling pups without knowing how to handle bats. I had attended a few workshops and figured out the very basics of handling without hurting them. But not to say that I really don't think I have all the skills that is required to rescue a bat. This is a Sinopterus sphinx. It's a very common fruit bat found in many cities, but I in cities, apart from looking at bats, I spend a lot of my time looking at moths and other wildlife. So it wasn't as cool as doing probably a cave project where people have a lot to talk about in wildlife. But staying in the city doesn't necessarily mean missing out on wildlife or missing out on other important and fun activities to do. And moving on from what I did as a high schooler and going back just a second, even though I was in school and I did do my project, for people who are still thinking if they want to observe bats or not, honestly, if you show a little more enthusiasm, you can have a legit excuse to skip some of your school classes, at least some of them, because I definitely use this as an excuse to skip some of my classes. For my master's, I again worked on bats in urban cities, and this is slightly different from before because earlier I was all talking about figuring out how to look up, observe bats without any equipment, without any funding. For this, I did get funding, I did get equipment. I went to institutional campuses, set out these bat recorders, and tried to record them overnight, figuring out what was out there and at what time they were out there. One of the most coolest things about the study that I found was while I was doing my research, I found there was a lot of studies on artificial lighting and bats and how some bats like artificial lighting at night, some bats don't like it and shy away. Whereas none of these details were given for a country like were given for a country like mine. And during this course of study, I found that there were species of bats which would be very active in this flag post area, which has a lot of floodlights. And there were certain species that kept away from it. So it was one of the first insights into this kind of a light dependent behavior from my country. These were some of the species. These were actually the only species I encountered during my short study period in the city. And one other interesting pattern that I saw might not be the reason, but there was this one bat, Pterarida aegyptica, and the activity of this bat and a few other bats around the world is generally more active more towards the dawn, a little before dawn, between 2 or 4 a.m. And some of these bats also call at a very low frequency. So there have been papers that suggest that traffic noise does impact some of the hearing of bat species and their ability to hunt prey. So it's possible that either these bats are active during 2 a.m. to 4 a.m. when traffic noise is very low, or it's also just possible that these bats just want to be hipster bats who want to be active during this time. These are just some of the data that I had taken for my study. But yeah. Thanks Niels for organizing this. And if there's any questions, feel free to write to me, or even if it's just a discussion, that would be great. Thanks.
Well, thank you so much. I agree with a lot of the comments where that said that what you're doing is awesome work, wonderful work, all of that stuff. I think it's a great example just to show that to work with bats, you don't necessarily need a lot of funding or to know a lot of people. It is possible to start small and then work from there. And you're a perfect example of that. And I think it's great that you were able to share your story with us. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm not seeing any questions, but maybe stick around a couple of minutes in case there are some late questions. Or they can just email you, yeah. I see one question come in. Is there somewhere where these contact details are saved? That is a very good question. I hadn't thought of that. Yes, I will. I will get contributors to send me their contact details, and I will post them on the event. We've got a long-ish break later today, and I'll do that at that time. I hope that's okay. Yeah, well, thank you. And we will move on with a short video from Australia, from one of our event sponsors, Titley Scientific. They've sent us a little video on their newest product, the Titley Chorus.
The Chorus is our new lightweight, cost-effective passive detector. You can record both acoustic and ultrasonic files, so one device can survey for birds, bats, frogs, and other vocalizing animals. With the features you expect from a Titley Scientific detector, like built-in GPS, user-replaceable microphones, weatherproof housing, powered by AA batteries, the Chorus will quickly become your new favorite detector.
Okay, so the Chorus is actually a device I'm personally interested in. I'm hoping to test it out in the next few months. So yeah, after this brief interruption, yeah, you can learn more about obviously the Chorus on Titley Scientific's website, which I will link at some point in the chat. Let's go back to Asia. And where are we going now? It's fun because I can actually choose where we're going. It's great. It's a lot easier than booking flights and things. Let's go to the Philippines, shall we? Yes, there's a good comment about being able to rewatch this to get the contact details again. I would recommend that, but I will find an easier solution as well. Yeah.
Hello and good evening, everyone. I am Chrysler from the Philippines and a PhD student from the Chinese Academy of Sciences in China. First, I would like to thank the team behind the International Bat Night, especially to Nils for organizing this fantastic meeting and interactions among bat biologists and enthusiasts from the different parts of the globe. So tonight, I am very thrilled to present to you some of our developments in bat conservation, and my talk will discuss the current conservation status of global cave-dwelling bats in species and habitat levels. I will also share the tools that we developed, the collaborative database we're working, and how this framework was applied to understanding and developing the conservation priorities for unfamiliar but important taxa in their ecosystem. So I think everyone is familiar that we are facing different ecological changes at present time. Our home planet Earth is being forced to change significantly as a result of extensive human alterations such as land use changes and excessive use of natural resources. Scientists and policymakers are in consensus that we are entering the sixth mass extinction with accelerating rate of extinction higher than what is projected. Therefore, it is core in applied conservation to identify species and ecosystems at risk that needs urgent attention. However, conservation does not have enough resources to achieve all its goals, such as limited resources and allocation for conducting research to generate baseline evidences, and the capacity to implement conservation actions on ground. Thus, it is really important to develop priorities to identify systems and population that requires immediate interventions. However, not all species and ecosystems are perceived equally. One example of this are bats and many of their habitats. So many bat species are threatened by various threats and human impacts, and the changing environment are among the key drivers for many species declines around the world. In Southeast Asia, for example, it is predicted that at least 171 bat species are projected to be affected by climate change coupled with land use changes in the next 50 years. So, bats, despite its enormous ecosystem services, funding allocation for their research and protection of either their population or habitats remain significantly low compared to those species that are perceived appealing. So take a look, for example, in our recent review, we found that large bat species such as flying foxes and medium fruit bats are more efficient seed dispersers in long distances compared to other taxonomic groups such as primates and elephants. So yet, as conservation funding is often based on taxa that is often perceived charismatic, that is sometimes not the best representative to entirely protect communities or a large fraction of species. This practice is leaving behind many important and critical ecosystems, including large fractions of bat species around the world. Therefore, it is essential that we highlight bat priorities, especially in different scales. So among Earth's ecosystem, caves and underground ecosystems cover around at least 20% of land surface, but are often underrated despite it contains many unique and endemic species. For example, in Chinese caves and many other tropical Southeast Asian caves, an estimated of 90% of described species are new to science. However, many cave ecosystems lack systematic studies and conservation attention in many regions. So, bats are useful shortcuts for cave conservation. Surrogate taxa are often used as shortcut or cost-effective approach to identify geographical or species priorities for conservation. So within cave ecosystems, bats are the ideal taxa as they provide various ecosystem services such as pollination, seed dispersal, and insect pest reduction. In return, inside caves, bats are considered as keystone species as they transfer energy from the outside to the inside of the cave in the form of their excreta that is really important for many cave-dependent species such as macroinvertebrates or macrovertebrates. Therefore, bats are important for cave conservation. So in other words, when we conserve cave bats, they can indicate the diversity of other species or the entire communities within caves. So on this work, we develop a framework to understand the species-specific and habitat priorities for cave-dwelling bats by pulling different facets of biotic importance and risks across different scales. So first, we examine the global patterns of diversity, distribution, and extinction risks of cave-dwelling bats. Then we try to understand the distribution of threats per species. Then our next step includes mapping the broad and the fine scale priorities for bat caves based on cave biotic potential and vulnerability to threats. So, what we found on this work is that on species level prioritization, we use the IUCN Red List database. Our analysis showed that almost half, or 678, of all bat species are regularly using caves in any parts of their life histories, with 32% restricted to a single country, and 15% of the cave bats are in threatened categories, and 12% are data deficient, which is a significantly high rate. So amongst biological realm, though we found that Neotropic is the most sampled region in terms of species richness, endemism and species irreplaceability is highest in the Old World tropics, passing from the Australoceania to the Indo-Malayan and the southern part of the Palearctic. The highest rate of endemism was recorded in Australoceania, while the proportion of threatened species is higher in the Indo-Malayan realm and some part of the Palearctic. Highest endemism proportion is observed in Australoceania, spanning across the Old World tropics. While in country level, we found that China and Indonesia is the most species in terms of estimated species richness. So the estimated proportion of cave bats threatened with extinction is between 13% to 25%, with a 15% global average, which is lower compared to all global species of bats at rate of 16 to 35%. Here we found that narrowed species range is an important factor linked to species extinction, which means that species with narrow distribution are at higher risk of becoming extinct. For example, island endemic species have higher extinction risk compared to those species in mainland. And this is the same patterns observed with those that species that are geopolitically endemic. Apart from geographic range, direct threat are significant contributors to higher risk of extinction for many species compared to indirect or geoclimatic threats. So, despite that high species diversity of cave-dwelling bats, many species are facing multiple threats from direct, indirect, and natural threats. So one of the key threats are, of course, the indirect threats of deforestation, unregulated cave tourism, shifting agriculture, and hunting. So here I will discuss more of the specific threats bats are facing. So first, hunting. So subsistence is the primary reason for hunting bats, but this can also be attributed to the lack of state policies that reinforce the protection of species from being hunted or harvested in massive amount, especially for those that are not classified as threatened. Such case may lead to what we called as passenger pigeon fiasco effects, or where a common and abundant species may become extinct as a result of continuous human activities such as hunting and food consumption, especially given that many species lack overarching legislative measures for protection. However, This is not yet known on a larger scale, and this is what we're trying to answer on our future projects. Ecotourism or cave tourism. While cave tourism and bat watching may provide a relevance to bat management as a strategy to circumvent misconception and educate the public about bat importance and increase awareness and involvement to species protection. However, drawbacks of ecotourism towards environment is undeniable, and we emphasize caution in employing tourism as a tool for conservation, as bat cave tourism may pose more threat and harm if unregulated tourism are implemented, affecting both their ecosystem. So it is we need to be careful in implementing ecotourism as a measure of conservation for cave dwelling bats. Next are the key surface threats. So number one is mining. So mining for mineral in cement are one of the key direct threats for many species and fragile karst habitats. Global infrastructure is increasing in many regions, and the demand for cement is also increasing. So almost half of the total cement production is from the karst areas of tropical Asia, which I mentioned earlier already lacks concrete protection. Interestingly, cement export production is significantly higher and congruent in countries with high cave bat species richness and threatened species. Example, in some part of southern China, Thailand, and Indonesia. In parts because of the extensive limestone karsts in this region. Next is the surface land use changes that may indirectly threat species, but it may be an important factor that increases the risk of species from future loss. For example, cave sites in more open areas are more susceptible to human intrusion. So they're highly visible to hunting and accessible for tourism use. So in our global prioritization, we used surface threats as proxy to indicate cave vulnerability, which I will discuss later on. So to identify the extent and understand threat and vulnerability of a species, our next step is to develop a tool to effectively identify caves for conservation priorities. So we developed the BCVI, or what we called as the Bat Cave Vulnerability Index. So the goal of this is to understand or to create a standardized tool to have a common measure to protect global and regional cave conservation and to protect intact cave areas with highly diverse bat communities, preserve mega population of cave bats, and investing to protect habitats that relies on a clear methods to prioritize a certain habitat. So first, we created a baseline for cave-dwelling bats across the world. So here we have the dark side S, which is a global dataset for bats in biodiversity, arcs, and caves. This is a collaborative and an open access database aiming to collating and synthesizing publicly available dataset of cave-dwelling bats. So currently, it involves 30 plus collaborators from 20 countries of 6 continents, and it contains 7,000 plus occurrence data for 59% of all cave-dwelling bats. But more information is needed, as well as further support for long-term and sustainable platform to implement this initiative. So, using the high-resolution data from the dark side S, we map 12 landscape and human variables. Globally, 7 out of 12 landscape variables showed significant relationship to species biodiversity, but none of these landscape features showed high or strong correlation to cave biotic vacuum. Then we only used 6 variables from this to perform prioritization of the global bat cave. New global bat cave vulnerability index, or what we called as BCVIG, we constructed broad and fine scale priorities using bat diversity data and landscape features. The broad scale represents priorities in biome level, and the fine scale represent the site level priorities. Here, to be able to be adaptable in global scale, we integrated species evolutionary distinctiveness and corrected weighted endemism measures to BCVI computation in identifying caves in regions with high biodiversity. Set 4 key priority settings. So we have the red cave, which are high priority caves, and these sites are highly threatened and degraded, which contains high bat biotic potential. Then we have green caves, which are pristine or located in pristine habitats or intact caves, which contains high biodiversity. Then we have the yellow priorities, which are mid-priority caves that may not contain high biodiversity but needs monitoring. And lastly is the blue caves, which are usually empty caves or contains very low to no biotic potential. So this cave is ideal for tourism or other human use. So our overall findings show that most caves with lower threat levels may show higher cave biotic potential. Example, evolutionary distinctiveness and endemism are higher, though this may be due to the loss of species from one disturbed caves, and this pattern is only significant in fine scale level or at the site level analysis, while the biome scale can provide us a preview of broader priorities that is underperforming. This will inform us the ground scenario for most actually biodiverse caves. So, for example, using BCVI indices on a broad scale, we showed an even distribution of 95% of caves show biotic vulnerability, but only 1% with high biotic values. On the other hand, in the fine scale BCVI, it showed that a more even distribution of BCVI values compared to the broad scale. Even though we have 41% of caves are still at lower biotic potential, there is an increase of 19% of high biotic potential caves. A high proportion of high vulnerability caves occurs in most of the tropical realms or tropical climatic regions. So we then translate the values of BCVI to set priorities in different scales. So we found that an estimated of an average of 15% of global caves fall in red priority level, with 3% to 28% representing high priorities in broad scale and fine scale respectively. So amongst region, the highest concentration of conservation priority needs are in the Palearctic and the tropical regions, except for the Afrotropical, which still requires more intensive data. The patterns of concentration of high priority caves based on REMS is highest in the Palearctic at 30%, closely followed by the Neotropical and the Indo-Malayan region. So while there's no silver bullet to resolve all these challenges, our present work offers a baseline evidence of priorities to hard to map biodiversity hotspots such as caves and subterranean ecosystems. We have challenges that sought to be addressed in the future, which were not explored in the current work. For example, we only accounted the 59% of the global cave-dwelling species, and species coverage varied by region. For example, in Indonesia has some of the highest estimated cave species richness, yet its contribution to the dataset based on surveys, and assessment is among the lowest. Furthermore, accurate, systematic, and taxonomic studies for bats are vital to appropriate conservation, as caves host high endemism and many cave bats have high numbers of as yet undescribed cryptic species. So, to end my talk, so here's the synthesis of or the overall take-home messages of my work, of our work. So caves and underground habitats are important for nearly half of the global bats. So narrowly distributed species are at higher risks, and 3% to 28% of assessed global bat caves needs urgent conservation intervention. So conservation efforts around the globe are present, but effective and standardized priorities are needed. So we need to achieve effective conservation, we need to promote global equitable collaboration and open sharing of information. And there is also a need to increase the highlighting of bats and their ecosystem in conservation decision making and prioritization. So if you're interested to be part of these initiatives, we are currently working on different initiatives to conserve global bats. So we have the Global Bat Cave Vulnerability and Conservation Mapping Initiative, the Dark Side S Project, the Bat Cave Vulnerability Index, and the global mapping of the global bat hunting risk. So thank you very much, and I would like to thank again the entire team of the International Bat Night for this really awesome platform to share our work and our conservation initiatives from different parts of the world. Thank you and good evening, everyone.
That was fantastic. I know Chrysler is in the chat, so he'll be hearing this. But yeah, no, I agree with some of the comments. There was one comment saying that Chrysler was nailing it, and I really agree. I think the Dark Side project is an amazing project. It's also an amazing name, but it's an amazing project that I'm looking forward to contributing to very soon. So again, it just shows that it is possible to collaborate as part of a larger project, even if the data that you have is just from the two caves in your town or something. It is valuable data that should be shared. And this project is particularly great because it's all open access data. There's no doesn't make it more difficult for some people to access the data. So it's a very, very good project. Okay. I did see one question that I would like to address. And that is the question asked by Karina, saying that she's noticed that in the last 5 years or so, bats have been getting more attention. And what I suggest you do, because this is a very interesting question, I am not sure, obviously I'm not sure I can answer because I've been involved with bats for 8 years now. So 5 years is a significant proportion of that. So obviously I am biased, especially because my presence online has increased significantly since 2018 when I started advertising my Big Bat Year. So I'm not sure I'm the right person to ask this, but who is the right person to ask this is Dr. Merlin Tuttle, who will be joining us later today. So what I suggest you do is that you go on the event page and there's a post by me saying that we'll have a Q&A with Merlin, and you just post your question as a comment there, and then we'll just ask Merlin later today. Okay, so well, thanks a lot for that. I can thank you, even though it's a video. It's a bit weird not to react to a video like I would react to a presentation, but because you are here, yes, I can thank you for putting this together. I think there's some great insights in there. Obviously, some good science too, but for most people, it's really about the insights that you've given, and yeah, it's quite it's very interesting to have a sort of global overview of the situation of bat caves, because most people associate bats with caves, and obviously, yeah, the majority of bats use caves. So it is interesting to have a global overview of all that. Okay, let's go a bit further north than the Philippines to South Korea.
안녕하세요. 저는 시민과학자와 함께하는 박쥐 조사를 맡고 있는 류흥진이라고 합니다. 저는 작년부터 시민과학자들과 함께 우리나라 전역에 박쥐를 조사를 하고 있는데요. 2020년에는 수변 조사와 핫스팟 조사를 통해서 우리나라에 있는 총 14종에서 16종의 박쥐를 발견하였습니다. 그래서 이제 올해는 시민과학자와 함께 우리 주변의 박쥐를 찾아보자 라는 주제를 확장시켜서 제주도에 지금까지 보고가 되어 있지 않은 다른 박쥐들도 한번 찾아보자 라고 해서 제주도에 조사를 하고 있어요. 오늘은 이제 시민과학자들과 함께 박쥐가 많다고 알려진 이곳 제주도의 한 동굴인데요. 이곳에 와가지고 같이 뱃워크를 하면서 박쥐를 찾아보려고 하고 있습니다. 네, 제주도의 박쥐는요, 저희 이제 육지에 있는 박쥐보다 조금 크기가 작고요. 크기가 작아서 그런지 초음파가 조금 더 이렇게 높습니다. 그런 특징이 있어가지고 사실은 저희가 초음파 조사를 통해서 어떤 박쥐라는 걸 특정을 할 수가 있는데, 제주도의 박쥐들은 아직 그 데이터베이스가 잘 갖춰져 있지 않아서 조금 주의를 해야 되는 부분이 있고요. 그리고 제주도는 겨울이 짧고 따뜻하다 보니까 겨울에도 아마 다른 지역보다 박쥐가 더 많이 활동을 하고 있지 않을까 이렇게 생각되고 있습니다. 미리 다 해드렸으니까 아마 지금 다 설정은 다 맞을 거예요.
저는 3학년 김선우고요.
5학년의 김도연이라고 합니다.
제주도에 박쥐가 이렇게 많이 있을 줄 몰랐는데 막 이렇게 초음파도 쏘고 막 날아다니는 게, 빠르게 날아다니는 게 멋있어요.
한 번에 떼거지 모여다니는 거 신기하다. 초음파 아니에요. 사람이 못 듣는 걸 말하는 거.
박쥐들을 엄청나게 많이 찾아서 엄청나게 유명한 박쥐 박사 같은 걸로 되고 싶어요.
진짜 이렇게 많은 박쥐를 발견할 수 있을 거라고 생각도 못 했는데, 풀씨 작년에 이제 진행을 했는데요. 작년 풀씨에서 정말 많은 연구자들이 아주 열심히 참여를 해주셨어요. 그래서
나는 수한 줄 알았어. 네, 안녕하세요. 어린이과학동화 편집장 김정입니다. 반갑습니다. 저희가 지구사랑 탐사대를 운영하고 있는데요. 어린이와 가족들이 함께하고 있는 시민과학 프로젝트입니다. 저희 시민과학 프로젝트는 16종의 생물종을 탐사하고 있고요. 박쥐를 탐사한 건 2년째예요. 저희 어린이들과 시민들이 박쥐 데이터를 많이 올려주고 계십니다. 박쥐 탐사를 통해서 일반인들이 박쥐에 대해서 인식을 많이 개선하고 우리가 이 생물들과 함께 행복한 세상을 만들었으면 좋겠습니다.
일단 저에게 박쥐는 사실 그거 같아요. 아주 작고 지켜주고 싶은 생물인 것 같아요. 박쥐를 한 번 더 이렇게 생각을 해주시고, 올해는 진짜 더 많은 프로그램 그리고 더 큰 아웃도어 워크숍을, 야외 워크숍을 기획을 하고 있었는데요. 이렇게 코로나 때문에 진짜 많은 분들 모시지 못하고 이렇게 진행을 하게 됐어요. 그래도 정말 다행인 거는 이걸 학술 행사로 이렇게 취급을 해주셔서 그래도 지금 오늘 몇 분을 모시고 이렇게 하게 되었는데, 내년에는 더 많은 사람들과 더 넓은 곳에서 더 많은 박쥐를 볼 수 있는 그런 행사를 개최를 하고 싶고요. 네, 이렇게 저희 시티밴 과제에 참여를 해주시는 시민과학자 여러분께 정말 감사드리고요. 앞으로 우리나라의 그 국가 박쥐 모니터링 프로그램이 그 확립되는 그날까지 저는 열심히 할 예정이니까 저와 함께 다 같이 우리나라에서 시민과학자들과 함께 박쥐를 조사하는 그런 멋진 환경을 만들어 나갈 수 있으면 좋겠습니다. 감사합니다.
Wow, this is such an amazing project. Involving kids in citizen science is really something I love, and it's awesome to hear about all this. Yeah, I see in the chat that a lot of people agree, and I see that some of the kids from that project are in the chat as well. So awesome. Yeah, some fantastic work being done by some very young bat workers. I don't think one is ever too young to start working with that. So yeah.
Understanding the Formosan golden bats. Bats are seen as one of the most exciting or lovable animals in the world. The favorite species of bats can be counted on the fingers among over 1,100 species of bats in the world. In Taiwan, Formosan golden bats, Myotis formosus flavus, are the most beautiful and favorite species. The Formosan golden bats often roost in foliages in residential districts or the beams of houses. Furthermore, they don't have serious photophobia. The Formosan golden bats thus become the most popular species among over 30 species of bats in Taiwan because they are different from the species which have dark gray fur and like to roost in crevices and caves. The Formosan golden bats are also called the Taiwan golden bats or the upside-down bell. They mainly distribute in the woods of the southwestern Taiwan, and the most famous group is on the beams of a traditional house at Shuilin village in Yunlin County. The more the Formosan golden bats are in the house, the more illustrious the host promotion and fortune are. Therefore, the public universally think the Formosan golden bats are symbolic of good fortune. Many people want to visit the house in order to share the benefit of good fortune. The Formosan golden bats are the migratory bats. They are insectivores, and they catch insects by the echolocation, which is made from their throat to muzzle. Their life history could be divided into 6 stages. In late March, after they are awake from hibernation, they fly to the southwestern Taiwan to have gathered reproduction. They will flock together into big groups from April to May. At this time, the female bats often can be seen in low foliage, and it is really adorable that most pregnant bats' belly will bulge. The female bat groups start to deliver and nurse their babies from May to July. In this period, it is suitable to lactate because the insects are abundant due to the profuse rainfall. The matching happens from July to August. In a year, the ground Formosan golden bats of opposite sex roost in different roosts. Only you can see the adult male bats and the female bats roost together at this time. They migrate from the nursery roots from July to October. The Formosan golden bats will leave the breeding site one after another at the late breeding period, but not very far from the main group. Their hibernation period is November to next March. At this period, the male Formosan golden bats hibernate, and the thin frost and glove of water moisten them. Hibernating bats do not eat or drink as long as 4 months until around next April. Nowadays, these bats live in close contact with humans, and the group size of 3 hotspots were decreasing every year. So, it is very urgent that we have to protect these charming fairies. Logging, tree thinning, using pesticide, or not well-planned bat watching activities will affect their survival and reproduction. Taiwan Sustainable Union and the Shenzhen Elementary School work together to initiate the governance of the Formosan golden bat. Now, public awareness, research, legislation, and rules protection are 4 important conservation approaches for this bat species. We have guides in the Formosan golden bat home, which can offer eco-tourist bat information. The Formosan golden bat home is divided into 7 districts, including the exhibition hall, contributions, evolution and diversity, public health, diet and roost, library, and study bats. Besides, we plant bat-friendly trees on which the bats prefer to roost around our home, establishing a lot of explanation boards and over 120 bat buses in our home. We expect through this process, which is started from the ecological conservation of bats, integrating the non-government organization, local communities and schools, in order to preserving the happiness of bats for the Formosan golden bats.
Okay, so yeah, the work they do at the Golden Bat House in Taiwan is really amazing. I wanted to visit the museum, but unfortunately I didn't have time for that. So I didn't get to see those super cute orange bats, but hopefully if I'm ever back in Taiwan, I will be able to see them because they are super cute. Yeah. Yes, apologies for the sound. So some of the videos, well, they have different sound levels because they were made by different people. I didn't have time to standardize the sound levels or anything. So yeah, some of them are best listened to using headphones. If there are actual technical issues on my end, I will try to solve them. But unfortunately, when it's just low sound levels, I can't do anything. But yeah, use headphones or just crank the volume on your computer. Sorry about that. Yeah, Charming Fairies is a really cute name for bats. I think it should be used more often. Yes, I said I was going to go back to something that was shown in the previous video, so from South Korea with the children citizen scientists. They had a little, I don't have one with me, but they had a little red plastic thingy that was plugged into their smartphone. And that's an ecometer touch made by Wildlife Acoustics. So it's a very small microphone that's very affordable for what it does, and it's very convenient because you just have to plug it into the smartphone, and then you can see the back calls in real time. Sorry, and that makes it a great tool for citizen scientists because there's immediate feedback, both visual and auditive. Because there are some other detectors that will only give you audio feedback, but it doesn't work for everyone. So it's just a matter of finding what works for people. And also those ones, they make it more difficult to record things. So yeah, the Ecometer Touch is a great citizen science tool. Yeah. I see there is a question about a similar event to do this that are focused on spiders. I've never heard of such a thing, but I do not know anyone who works with spiders. Well, I know someone, but yeah. I know there's one fairly similar on frogs and other amphibians. I wouldn't be that surprised if there was one on spiders. It might be a bit tricky to get a hold of it. Because while, I mean, social media helps advertising events like this, it's still a bit of a challenge to reach new people. So yeah, I think it's worth just looking up on Google and maybe Facebook as well. If there are any large Facebook groups that deal with spiders, maybe ask there or something. But if not, then you can do this. I mean, it's a nightmare to organize, but it's definitely worth it. Yeah. Okay. So hi, Rohit. How's it going? You're muted.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah.
Hey.
How's it going?
Well, pretty well.
Yeah.
Yep. Ready to go in for my talk.
Yeah, it's the first time we're on a call together, isn't it?
Still
Yeah.
clearing up my throat. Just got up like an hour ago.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Whenever you want to start.
I can start sharing my screen if you. Yeah, it's 3 minutes early. Is that okay with you?
Let's wait a couple of minutes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Because I said we'd start again at 30. So I mean, it's not 30 for everyone, but yeah.
Yeah.
Dealing with time zones is tricky.
I know. Yeah. Yeah. That's why I let you have your break. I didn't dive in and then I thought and start talking to you. But
yeah, no, it's a bit of a challenge, but yeah, I've got my planning here.
Yeah.
Schedule, and yeah, I had to pick one time zone, so I went for UTC. But obviously, I realize now that most people don't know what UTC is. So yeah. So now, whatever I'm posting now, I try to add like Eastern Standard Time, either one of the Australian or New Zealand time zone, British Standard, summertime. Yeah, even the names are different. Because sometimes it's standard, sometimes it's summer. Great, not confusing at all. Yeah. Yeah, and then I saw that some people were adding their own time zone as well. So I think people are getting sort of the hang of UTC. And I kept saying that, yeah, if you Google something, if you Google UTC to whatever your time zone is, Google can do the math for you. So yeah.
Wow.
But honestly, I think it's going pretty well now. So far, we've been getting, I mean, I've been getting good feedback. People seem really happy in the chat.
Everybody seems very excited on
yes,
Facebook.
Yes, great to see.
I'm really excited to see that. I'm very happy for you.
Yeah, the technology is holding up really well as well, which I'm surprised by, because so I've got a workstation in Belgium, and that one is running the stream actually. So I've got a remote desktop here, so I can look what it's doing, and that's where I share the screen and stuff. But it's remote, so it has to go over the internet. And then I've got, so that's why I'm twice on this call, because I've got one computer here and another one there. So it is very complicated. But somehow it is all working just fine. I'm very surprised. I'm impressed. Yeah.
No, it's really impressive how you pull this off.
Yeah, and then to make matters easier for me, I decided that doing it from home was too easy, so I just went to Latvia, to like mid of nowhere.
Yeah.
Hopefully, if the
Okay.
weather stays like this, so it's cloudy but it's not raining, there will be
Yeah.
trapping happening tonight, and then I can join the Bat Conservation Trusts live from here. But then I can show hopefully some bats from the trap, because it's an unusual trapping method. It's a funnel trap. It's a huge funnel trap.
Oh, you're in Papa.
Yeah.
You're with my lab mates. Okay.
Oh yes, yes. I
Yeah,
was
you're with
meaning to ask them
Shannon
if they
and
knew you, but
Oliver.
obviously, yeah, you know, yeah, because
Cool.
yeah, Christian, when I arrived, he left
Yeah,
yesterday.
yeah.
Yeah, but yeah.
Yesterday and the
Oh, okay, yeah. So they are your lab mates. Yeah, yeah,
Oh, cool.
yeah. No, it's a very small world, because when I arrived, there was a Belgian guy as well.
Mhm.
He recognized me. I didn't recognize him immediately, but like it's such a great,
Wow.
yeah. That's what I love about the bat community, is that you go to a semi-famous place and you'll meet someone, you know. Yeah.
Okay,
Okay,
it's
it
time.
is
I think I'll start.
31 on my watch. Yep.
Yep. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Cool. So I'll go ahead. Should I start my presentation now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
full screen and everything. Yep.
Okay. Great. Hello, everyone from different parts of the world, wherever you are, whether it's morning, evening, afternoon, doesn't matter, just a warm hello. And I'm going to talk about bats from India today. And India, as you know, I mean, it's a country that's famous for its tigers. Well, not just tigers, but rhinos, bears, elephants, leopards, lions, you name it, whatever it is, you name it. And in such a country where large mammals are charismatic and given such a lot of importance, bats do not take the center stage. So this presentation is an aim to throw a light on the remarkable bat diversity that we have, and I'm going to take you through this diversity through my stories from my fieldwork in different parts of the country. Um, Now, a glimpse of Indian diversity. As you already know, India is a vast country, and in that vast country is encompassed a lot of different biogeographic zones leading to habitats like deserts, cold deserts, coasts, islands, rainforests, everything that is possible in a country of this size. And this leads to a remarkable diversity of wildlife, which includes about 431 species of mammals, out of which 131 are just bats. So that's roughly 30% of the entire mammalian diversity of the country, which is made up just by bats. And for a person like me, who, like Nils, shares this common hobby of wanting to see different species of bats in their lifetime, it puts me in a fix, because out of this whole vast country, what place do I choose? Where is it that I can see the most number of species in a short amount of time and a short amount of research funding? And the answer to how I went about choosing the places where I want to work lies in my own personal geography. And I'll quickly take you through it without making this a very, very personal talk. But I grew up in Nagpur, which is right in the center of the country. It's a city known for its tigers and its oranges, a very strange combination. But Nagpur, this apart from being one of the hottest cities in the country, is also known as the tiger capital of the country. So so I come from a place like this, relatively calmer and quieter part of the country, and since my kindergarten days, I've been seeing a large colony of flying foxes, which was on the way from my home to the kindergarten. But that was about my childhood. And later in my teenage life, when I got interested in wildlife and in bats particularly, uh, it was because of this particular incident, where one fine morning my aunt looked into the kitchen dustbin and she got this fright of her life, because there was a bat sleeping in it. And these incidents are really not completely uncommon in India. And this particular bat, a short-nosed fruit bat, small fruit-eating bat, went into the dustbin, due to the smell of rotting bananas, and it just got stuck over there, and we took it out. So this was the first time I saw a bat really up close and personal, and realized what a gentle and docile animal it is. I took that interest forward to Bombay, to Mumbai, where I did my bachelor's in this bustling city famous for its leopards and also, of course, for Bollywood. And I wouldn't be surprised if you thought I would do a song and dance performance over here. But in Bombay, I found a nice group of friends who would accompany me on treks, or rather, I would accompany them on treks. And when we were done watching birds and butterflies and everything else, running out of options, we started exploring caves, and this interest in bats that was dormant sprouted once again. So we found a cave which had black bearded tomb bats. My first time seeing those bats way back in 2011. And when we explored the surroundings of Bombay, we found more colonies, more different species of bats. And my favorite among them was the Bedom's horseshoe bat, which, based on current knowledge, is endemic to peninsular India. Then I moved to Bangalore for my master's in wildlife science, and Bangalore is known as the Silicon Valley of India. It's a technological hub, but to me, it's more famous for its amazing South Indian breakfast, but also for its traffic. It's so famous that when once a politician got convicted to 7 years of imprisonment in Bangalore, people started passing around this joke which means she would spend 6 years in prison and 1 year reaching the prison in Bangalore traffic. And in this city, but this city gave me a lot of bats, and thanks to friends like Rajesh Puttaswamiya, who took this photo and is currently working on the Kola leaf-nosed bat. It's a critically endangered species of bat, and we found the cave from where it was originally discovered, and we realized that it's under threat from granite mining. And recently, just earlier this year, there was a documentary on Al Jazeera about the work that is going on to protect the Kola leaf-nosed bat. So this is the documentary that you can search, and I really recommend giving it a watch. Not well, a little far from Bangalore, but I stationed myself in Bangalore at that time, and I went to this cave somewhere along the Karnataka-Goa border over here, which has one of the only two remaining populations of the rotten sweet-tailed bat, a really enigmatic and charismatic looking bats, one of the few bats that's so colorful. Even if it is black and white, it's really colorful and distinctive in its appearance. And these are the two places from where it's known, from completely disjunct areas of the country. Now, after seeing these places in India, living in 3 different cities, and exploring some other places for short research projects, getting a glimpse of deserts, rainforests, islands, and all of these beautiful places, now I had to choose a place where I was to spend the next 3 to 5 months doing field work for my master's dissertation. And I was absolutely clueless. I had absolutely no clue what bat I wanted to study, what question I wanted to ask. And then a senior from my master's course gave me this bright idea that you think of the place where you want to be, and the research question will automatically pop up. And that worked. That really worked for me. And out of all these places marked on this map, the answer was obvious where I wanted to be. I wanted to go to the Andaman Islands. And the research question came up. When I thought about the Andaman Islands, I became even more greedy. I did not want to be at one point in the Andaman Islands. I wanted to be all over the island, catching bats. And what is it that would allow me to do that? The answer to that is to study population genetics. And for the non-biologists watching this show, I was studying gene flow, which means how populations of different species are connected genetically. So when an animal breeds and it moves from one population to another, it goes and mates over there, and this transfers their genes. So the level of gene flow then determines how connected different populations are, how they're going to evolve in the future. If there's lack of gene flow, then two isolated populations could, separate out into new species, or they could have different diseases affecting them. So it affects how they're going to evolve in the future. And I studied this in 4 different species of bats which are found across the islands. They all differ in their body sizes. Some are full, some are tree roosting, some are cave roosting. So all of these, their different ecologies have implications on how they transmit genes across this landscape of islands. And this led me to caves, sampling different species of bats, large, beautiful limestone caves. We saw some rather cool bats as well, which are found only in the Andaman Islands. For example, the Andaman horseshoe bat and the grand leaf-nosed bat, which is found in one tiny island called Little Andaman. It's not found anywhere else in the archipelago, which could definitely be a completely different species in its own right. We saw bats being eaten by snakes. In fact, the first short paper that came out of my master's was on bats being eaten by snakes and not about bats itself. We also saw birds, colorful birds from the islands, and survived a cyclone while we were out in the sea, thanks to the hard work of my field assistants, whose ancestors are from southern Burma. And we also ended up making graphs because that's what I'm paid to do. I'm paid to be boring in a way. But to quickly explain what this is, each circle over here represents a DNA sequence, and a sequence of DNA is read in 4 alphabets, A, T, C, and G. But not to go into much detail, every circle represents a DNA sequence, and if it is multicolored like this one, it is a sequence shared by individuals from different populations, in this case these ones. And this line over here tells you that there is a cluster of these sequences and another one of these sequences, and if you match it to the populations, it shows that there's a northern cluster and there's a southern cluster, which is very interesting because there's a vast sea gap here, but the bats seem to cross this, but not so much over here, which is easily crossable by land. So that's an interesting result, that we came from a bat in which we expected there would be gene flow all across the island. On the other hand, there was this bat for which I got what I expected, where you can see a northern cluster, a middle cluster, and a southern cluster, which is, and this particular bat is a small, tiny 6-gram cave roosting bat, cannot potentially fly very long distances. So this is a result that we expected. And this holds a lot of importance to how the species might evolve, in the future into, or possibly they still are different species even in the current day, and we don't know about it. And that was my end. That was the end of my Andaman journey. A lot of people and a lot of friends made in those islands over the course of 3 months, and bringing me back to the question where I want to go next. And you can see this entire northern belt I had never been there. And while my knees still supported it, my age still supported it, I wanted to be in the Himalayas. And that's the place where I chose to do my next field project. I've been based out of Uttarakhand since 2016 now. I first started a bat survey there in 2016 and 17, and that led to my PhD project from 2018. Uttarakhand is important because it's the only information that we have about bats from there comes way back from the 1870s, during the colonial times. And 40 species of bats were reported back then. Uttarakhand also sits at an interesting point in the world map or in the map of India, because it is here that species from Europe, from temperate China and Japan and peninsular India, all of them sort of meet here because it's at this crucial juncture. So it results in an exciting diversity of bats. It also has an interesting endemic species called the Peter's tube-nosed bat, which I have never seen, and it was only last seen back in the 1870s in Uttarakhand. Um, and close to very close to this place, for instance, Mussoorie. This is the type locality of the Peter's tube-nosed bat, and you can see in this comparison how this area has changed over the last 140 years. So we started a survey over there because it's logistically easier to start my work around Dehradun, which is the state capital, mostly surrounded by dry hills and low-lying forests. But before we got into work full on, we decided to do some sightseeing, and this is a place called the Forest Research Institute, one of the finest examples of colonial architecture in India. And no wonder it's used a lot in Bollywood movies for as a set. And it was here, not completely for work, but we had our first breakthrough. And hiding behind a pipeline in the Forest Research Institute building, we found European free-tailed bats, and around 15 to 20 of them. These were not known from Western Himalayas back then. There were only 2 records from India. And now that we've worked more often, we know that this bat is just about everywhere. Then we went on to Devalsari, which is a little further ahead in the mountains, a really interesting place because it is surrounded by dry hills, and on this particular valley and ridge, you have pristine cedar forest like this. So, and the moment I saw this place, I realized that it's going to be that place which has a diversity which I would not find in other places in Uttarakhand, and rightly so. For people watching from Europe, some of these bats might look a little familiar to you because they have close relatives in Europe. But then there were other species which came from completely different parts of the world, more like the round-eared tube-nosed bat, which is more of a tropical species, also finds the edge of its distribution over here in Uttarakhand. And likewise, for the greater tube-nosed bat, which is more of a temperate species, which also found the edge of its distribution in Uttarakhand. So that illustrates my point where I was talking about, this merging point of bat assemblages from 3 different parts of the world. And in the last 5 years, during my survey, I was looking for this one site that could give me everything: low human disturbance, a nice elevational gradient, so that I can see changes in bat diversity without having to travel far and wide. And that place happened to be Kedarnath Wildlife Sanctuary, where I've been based for the last 5 years. I mean, in summers, not all the time. I wish I was there all the time. But you can see how this change in elevation causes a change in forest types. For example, these are the low-lying forests at about 1,500 meters. At 2,000 meters, and then at 3,000 meters, the forest completely disappears, and it results in vast open grasslands. And to take you through the diversity across this gradient, lower down where the rivers are wider and there's more water, lives the Kashmir cave bat, which to me is one of the most important species for river conservation in India. It depends heavily on rivers. It feeds on aquatic insects, and it's also endemic to South and Southeast to South Asia. There are 4 different species of horseshoe bats living in the same valley. Sometimes we pick them up in the same sites, and as you go higher, the horseshoe bats drop off, but a more temperate kind of bat diversity comes out, which like, for example, the long-eared bats, which are very common in Europe. We have different species of them in India. And in the mid elevations where there's still some fruit to eat, I've twice caught this bat called the Blandford's fruit bat. And some other interesting records are of the somber bat, which until now was only known from one part of eastern India, eastern Himalayas, and now we found it here in Uttarakhand. The bronze sprite, which is a really enigmatic bat found in South and Southeast Asia, but in scattered locations. It's rather hard to catch this bat, I suspect, and that's why people have been missing it all over, and now we've caught it in Uttarakhand. Excuse me. We also made a DNA barcode library of bats in Western Himalayas. That means we sequence the DNA of these bats, and this now acts like a barcode. You can people no longer, I mean, people in the future may not have to kill these bats in order to identify them. They can simply take DNA samples and can potentially identify these bats. We also created a library of their calls, which in some cases are species specific. So you can identify species by recording them with ultrasonic recorders, and you'll see more of that in the live bat book that will happen later today. Using this knowledge, now we try to establish a long-term monitoring paradigm in Kedarnath Wildlife Sanctuary, where we put out these kind of ultrasonic recorders to record bat activity night after night, to see what they're doing, to eavesdrop into their activity. To give you an example, this is a typical scene from anywhere in India, where there's a mountain, there's playground, people playing cricket, women collecting firewood. In this particular place, when we put a bat detector, we recorded 17 different species of bats in just 2 nights of sampling. So, in just within 200 meters of the bat detector, there were about 14 to 17 species active in 2 nights. And now in my PhD, I've gone on further to ask some more fundamental questions about why this diversity of bats exists in this place. How does this diversity vary by elevation? How do so many bats live and share space by avoiding competition among each other? And of course, how this knowledge then translates into the survival of these bats with respect to climate change, because that is going to mess things up for them. It's going to change their distributions. It's going to change the dynamics that species have evolved for so many years. To put this into the larger context, years of research on bats in Europe have led to so many different books being published, and there's so much knowledge out there, not just for scientists, but also for hobby bat researchers. And there's this growing culture of people wanting to watch bats out of a hobby, but that's not there in India, simply because we only have one book published way back in 1997, getting outdated, completely out of print right now. But that's what we want to improve, and we really want to get there at some point. And I hope the research that I'm doing and many others are doing in India would make us catch up with Europe in the global stage. But before I get there, I still have this important question to answer. 5 years of working in Uttarakhand, I really need to go somewhere else, and where that would be, hopefully I'll tell you 3 years down the line from today. A big thanks to my my collaborators and people who helped me in the field, funding agencies, and no work would have been possible without the help of these beautiful people. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm quite jealous of quite a few species that you've seen. Yeah.
You're always welcome.
Yeah, I need to visit you one day. Yeah. There's so many places I need to visit. Luckily, I'm quite young, so I've got enough time to visit
Yeah.
all of them. Okay. Yeah, no, it's really amazing work. Yeah. And I like the way you've sort of presented it chronologically. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
But you also need to think of my age. My age is catching up, so you have to come and visit me while I'm still fit enough
Yeah,
to show you.
yeah. That's fair. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we'll do that. I mean, we'll find a way. Yeah. Yeah, no, but yeah, I'm really interested in like high altitude habitats as well. So I'm going to Peru next month, and I'll be sampling like way up there, see what we can find. Because there's very little research done with acoustics up there. It's mostly trapping, but with trapping in the neotropics, you mainly catch the one family, not the other ones.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll see. Yeah, it's going to be a fun trip. Yeah, I didn't really see questions. I saw a lot of praise. People seem to love your work, which is totally fair because it is amazing. Yeah, there's some comments on some of the rather funny and snazzy bat names like the bronze sprite, the ground leaf nose bat, and stuff like that. Yeah, some bat names that are quite funny. Yeah.
That's a lot of diversity in the audience as well.
Yeah, and at the beginning, people were telling us where they came from, and it was from all over. We've had a drop in viewership. I'm assuming it's because the Americans have gone to sleep. Because someone was writing earlier that it was 2 a.m. and she stayed up for this. Yeah, that's pushing it. So I'm assuming they'll join us back again later. Yeah, I mean, it is an international bat night, so it's night at some point for someone somewhere.
Yeah,
for me, it's all
nice
throughout
that
the
it's
day.
reflecting on the Facebook comments section as well. How
Sorry?
international this is.
Yeah, no, it's great. Yeah. Oh, there is a question. There's two questions in the chat.
Okay.
Can you see them?
No, in the no.
I'm happy to not the Zoom chat, the Facebook chat.
Yeah. I can wait.
I'm happy to read them. Wow, there's someone 3 a.m. Okay. Well, thank you for staying up that late. Yeah, obviously it is always possible to just catch up on everything you've missed by just so Facebook should show you a bar at the bottom, and then you can just scroll back and rewatch some parts. That is possible even when it's running live. You won't miss, well, you will miss what's going on now, but you can always go back, and there will be regular breaks where you can catch up on stuff, catch up on sleep, and catch up on food, drinks, and all that stuff. Yeah, it's but nice, so why not stay up all night? Yes, that is a very good point. Yeah, I'm staying up all day, but that is going to be challenging enough. If you want to go for an all-nighter, yeah, sure, go ahead. I mean, there's only one of those every year, so you've got another 364 days to recover. Should be fine.
Cool. I see a question from Rachel and from Vinod. Okay. So yeah, Rachel asked, was it difficult to analyze your calls? Yes, no, I was making a call library. So I first made the call library, and now I'm relying on the call library that I made for my own research. And Vinod asked, what are the difficulties you faced during bat surveys? I think I've been really privileged. Well, of course, in India, this male privilege helps, which is a sad thing. And I'm basically quite privileged I'm quite a privileged citizen of India, which is sad. But that has helped me in my research, and I hope, I can use this privilege to make things things nicer for people who are less privileged. But yeah, I think I've always ran into people who were willing to help, and so there's no strong difficulty that I can think of right now. Well, partly because of my privilege. Yeah, I think that's the only two questions I see.
Yeah. There's also a joke because there's people watching from all over the world. We're a battalion, which is a pretty good one. Yeah. Yeah, if you've got other jokes, just keep them coming. They'll keep us awake all day. Tubies are adorable, so different from ours here. Alicia, where is here for you? Yeah, also, Rohit, when is the book coming?
Good question. First, a thesis has to come, unfortunately, so I have to focus on that now. But hopefully, in the next 10 years, maybe.
Okay, that's a good timeline. Yeah, okay, yeah.
Cool. I will leave you then to
Yeah.
managing things. I don't see any more questions,
No, I don't
unless
see
you
any.
want me to
Will
stay
you
for
be joining
moral
us a
support.
bit later again for the?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
And I will join. I will join the live stream there.
Okay. Great. Amazing. Okay. So, I mean, I'm only saying bye to Rohit. Other people don't leave. There's more
See
stuff
you
coming.
then.
Okay. See ya.
Good luck. Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me here.
No worries. Thank you for coming. Okay. Before we move on to Nepal, which is not too far from where Rohit was working, I'll just show you again a brief sponsor spot from Titli Scientific, presenting their Titli chorus. So they're the event's sponsor, along with Barbastella Ecology, which is my own company.
The Chorus is our new lightweight, cost-effective passive detector. You can record both acoustic and ultrasonic files, so one device can survey for birds, bats, frogs, and other vocalizing animals. With the features you expect from a Titli Scientific detector, like built-in GPS, user-replaceable microphones, weatherproof housing, powered by AA batteries, the Chorus will quickly become your new favorite detector.
Okay, and just as a reminder, so I'll keep saying this throughout the live stream because people tune in and out. But so while this event isn't meant to be a fundraising event, I'd like to emphasize that it is important that that you could at least consider supporting either bat carers, bat conservationists, and you can do that either financially. That's probably the most straightforward way, but it might not be possible for everyone. But social media now allow for donations with little to no fees, transaction fees, so that's pretty helpful. But then you can also, if you don't have any money to donate, which is absolutely fine, you can maybe go out in the field with some people and help them with their field work. Everyone I know who's doing field work needs help. That's a constant. So that's also a great way to get into bat research and bat conservation. But then you can also help bat carers. They might need volunteers as well. They might need people to drive bats around. They might just need people to do outreach. That is a great way to get to do some valuable work for bats as well, is to just learn about bats and just engage with people around you. It could be a school, it could be just your family. Bat research and bat conservation doesn't have to involve loads of money and very complex equipment and a huge team. You can do a lot on your own with limited means, and it can still make a difference. And that is what this event is about. It's about bringing people together, sort of bringing ideas together so that hopefully we can motivate people to involve themselves in bat conservation. So yes, I think the official name now is We Are All a Battalion. Okay, so the battalion numbers are changing, but we are, as long as you are following this stream, you are part of the battalion, the one and only battalion. If you don't get the joke, it's in the chat. Just yeah. Yeah, there's someone saying that they always need volunteers for rescuing, orphan care, events, support. See, that's just one example of one bat carer who needs volunteers. I'm sure it's the case everywhere around the world. So just have a look around, see what's in your area, and send an email. It doesn't have to be a complex email. Usually people are very happy to welcome you if you offer help. So just reach out. It can be a bit scary at times. I know it took me ages before I started reaching out to people, but now I reach out to people all the time, and it's amazing. It's amazing to be part of that community. So, okay, let's go to Nepal. where is Nepal is. So yes, I should say that this video was made by Emily Stanford, and it is featuring me and Sanjeev Banya, who's a Nepalese researcher. Unfortunately, he's tied up in university work, so he couldn't join us today, but he's kindly accepted that I feature the video that we made when we were all together in Nepal during my Big Bat year. You sure this is a good idea?
A bit tight of a squeeze.
This week we are going to survey different caves here in Nepal. The population is declining. The species that used to be found in Pokhara are not found recently.
I'm traveling the world for a year to study human-wildlife conflicts with bats, and I'm also trying to learn about how different cultures perceive bats, what myths and legends they have about them, and basically how their perceptions influence bat conservation.
I quite like the idea of doing a big year, which is seeing as many species as possible between the 1st of January and the 31st of December.
Are you traveling alone?
No, I have Kiwi. It's from the Bat Conservation Trust in the UK. And I've seen lots of caves, lots of bats and lots of guano.
I've conducted a few bat researches that include radio tracking of flower visiting bats, Rossitus technology. I have conducted some cave surveys in the Kaligandaki region. That's for the first time in Nepal. And I have conducted bat research here in Pokhara.
This week, the three of us are teaming up to explore different caves around Nepal and find out what bat species are here. How did you get interested in bats?
One day when I was in grade 11, there was a colony of bats right in my garden. So I was really interested by looking at the formation and their way of roosting. So that's how I got into bats.
I actually quite literally stumbled into my passion for bats. I was going for a hike one day and I was looking through my binoculars like this, not looking where I was going. And I ended up tripping over a hole and I fell backwards. I stuck a stick in to see how deep it went. And then like 100 bats flew out and I was completely terrified. I didn't know anything about bats. When I got back to internet land, I looked up some facts about bats and I realized how important and how cute they are. It's just something I never had realized before. So that's kind of how I got interested.
We got invited by a bat work group to assist them in a bat survey. And I had a really close encounter with bats. I thought they were really cool, and then I did some more research on them and realized how little we knew about them. So yeah, that's what really made me interested in them. I didn't know there was such diversity.
My favorite bat is the greater fishing bat, Noctilio leprinus, and I wish to see it one day because it has such great fits and it hunts bats. The echolocation drives through the water, so yeah, hopefully soon.
My favorite bat species. Do I really have to list all 1,395 of them, or it's all of them? Except the ghost-faced bat. I hate that one. It's ugly.
It's my favorite.
It's ugly!
Don't be mean to my favorite bat!
But wait, apart from the painted bat, which bat is your favorite?
I have a lot of favorites. The painted bat is really cool. The Honduran white bat is really cute. The Yoda-faced bat. The spectacled flying fox, of course, I love them. Yeah, I have too many favorites.
We'll be going to the cave in Sangja, the cave where we can find the endemic bat of Nepal, Mighty Sorbai. We'll be doing our survey there.
Yay! To the bat cave!
To the bat cave!
We'll have to go up that mountain, then get down, and then climb up.
After 5 hours. You told me we had a short
It's all for the bats. You think he'll take us in the bucket? Let's ask. It works! To the bat cave! Now you can check this off your bucket list. Yes! Look at that!
going so fast.
Got some friends down there.
Where? Oh my god.
Hey, don't look at them.
Oh god. Why are there land leeches?
They're quite quick, actually.
They're coming for me.
They're coming for you.
Run! Run! Oh my god, they're everywhere on my shoes! Why are there land leeches? Why? It's so gross. God. I think so. I hate leeches. That's so gross. As I was saying. I don't know. So we're lost. We're covered in leeches. It's about to rain.
Best day of my life.
And we have no food.
That too.
And, yeah. Great. We found it. We did it.
Just
Gross. That's fine. How are your leeches? Oh man. Oh god. Oh, that one's really stuck to me. Gotta rip it.
we are in this cave, the Kailash cave, to see if there's any endemic bat of Nepal might survive. So it has been recorded in this place, and there are only 3 places that it has been recorded. Yeah, it is data deficient, so we are going to search for it.
Going in. Alright. You going first?
It's about flying by.
What's that?
That's a bat detector. That's bees honey. Bees honey. That's mini. Or brazilians, one of the two. So there are 2 bats, 2 species of bats here. So both are horseshoe bats. Their call is quite distinct. They're long, flat line, and hey, that one's a lot higher. That one must be around 105 kilohertz. So that one's Rhinoceros bisoni. That one is from the Rhinoceros basilis complex, really small one.
What is the range of the endemic bat that we're looking for?
We have absolutely no idea.
Not a single idea.
No, but myotes have like that.
Got a leech going up your shirt.
Oh, do you? Thank you.
I'm only afraid of leeches. Nothing else. Ow. I just hit my head. I hope none of these rocks fall. What happened?
Yes. It's the same one. But also something else in common.
This is a cute bat, but it's not the bat that we're looking for. So it's time to release her back in the cave. So we've been in here for 2 hours. What have we found?
We've got 2, well, almost 3.
Yeah.
Rhinoceros religionosus. And we've recorded 2 species of Rhinoceros.
Yeah.
No, 3 actually.
But not the endemic bat yet.
Not the endemic bat yet. Oh my, to survive. We still haven't got any echolocation calls of this species.
So next we'll go into the next chamber and keep looking?
Yeah, we will be going into the next chamber and we are gonna keep looking.
Wish us luck.
Yeah.
Okay, final report. We did not catch or find any of the endemic bats.
Maybe they have migrated somewhere other place, but they are definitely in this place.
But just not now.
I'll just send you the photo when I get back here and capture one.
Right. Make us all jealous.
Yeah.
But we did have a good time. We debated sleeping in the cave, but there are leopards around, so now we're gonna go into the village.
We're not gonna die tonight.
Find a village first.
Find a village
Yeah,
and hopefully find a place that'll take us. So
Okay.
we'll see.
And get.
Okay, let's go now.
Bye.
It's thundering out there.
We made it to the village. Hopefully they'll take us in despite how dirty we are. Just hope. You're so cute. We did find a village to sleep in last night, but they didn't have any food for us, so now we haven't eaten since breakfast yesterday. So we're quite hungry. We have a fewer hike to get back down to the town, and we'll have some food there. It'll be good. Even though we couldn't find the endemic bat, we still had a great adventure.
There you go. That was our little trip to a cave in Nepal, where we sadly didn't find the bat. As Rohit said, yes, I'm looking a lot happier now than I did then. It was quite an exhausting trip, and then we had to, as you heard, take refuge in a village because it started raining pretty badly. And but it was an interesting trip, and I'm happy I did it. And the video brought back some fond memories of that trip. Hopefully it helps you understand sort of what it's really like to look for bats, for poorly studied bats, anywhere in the world. It's getting there is a challenge, finding the bats is a challenge, knowing how you're going to identify the bat when you get it is a challenge. So yeah, that's a lot of challenges. But yeah, I thought it was a good inclusion, that video. It's just different approach to what we've seen so far. There is a discussion about using red lights while exploring caves to minimize disturbance. Does it make too unsafe for humans? So yes, red light does minimize the disturbance caused to bats. In this case, it's partly obvious in the video, but it was, yeah. The cave was very, very difficult to navigate, and I would be very uncomfortable walking there with very dim red light, because the risk of it hitting your head on something sharp is very real. The risk of falling, there were some pretty substantial gaps and crevices as well. So the risk of ankle injury and stuff like that was real. And in those cases, I think it's perfectly fine to use white light. The thing is that most of the parts where you saw video, there were no bats there. Obviously, when you see bats in the hand, there were bats. But first of all, we never filmed anything under a colony when there were colonies in the cave. Even if we caught bats, we just moved elsewhere so that the light disturbance was reduced. And yeah, so through the tunnels and everything, there were no bats. Overall, there were relatively few bats in that cave, but we still tried to minimize disturbance as much as possible. But we also believe that it is important to document research on rare and endangered species like this one. Yeah. Rohit says a workaround is to use transparent red cellophane sheet. Yeah, it works pretty well as well. Yeah, it's a good sort of easy fix. Yeah. But when it comes to dangerous caves, I still prefer having white light. Yeah. Okay. What are we doing now? Oh, I know what we're doing now. We're going to Africa. So that was it for Asia, actually. I hope you had a good time learning about loads of different kinds of Asian bats.